The following program is underwritten by the Nevada Irrigation District. Since 1921, providing clean and healthy drinking and irrigation water to more than 24,000 homes, farms, schools, and businesses in Nevada and Placer counties.
Hi, this is NCTV Interviews, and I'm your host, Lew Sitzer. Today, as you may well see, we're here with our notes, and we're going to be learning a lot about the managed growth initiatives that are going to be on the November 4th ballot, focusing entirely on Grass Valley. And we have with us today Grant Cattaneo, who is a member of Concerned Citizens for Traffic, Steve Enos, who will be talking about Measure Y, and Patti Ingram, who is a former Grass Valley mayor and representing the no position. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Lew.
Lew.
And looking forward to getting educated. Grant, you're going to be talking about Measure Z, and you've been doing a lot of speaking these days. So each person will have about 5 minutes to explain their position, and then we'll have some discussion. Floor is
Yes, I've
yours.
been doing so much speaking, I'm starting to lose my voice, but I would like to talk about Measure Z. Z is like in Zorro. I find it interesting that no matter what age bracket I talk to, people remember Zorro, our Spanish Robin Hood in California. So anyway, Measure Z really raises the question about why can't the citizens of the city of Grass Valley have an opportunity to vote on what the future of their city looks like? And that's really what Measure Z is all about. And it has three pieces. One, it asks that the city of Grass Valley follow its approved general plan. Now, it approved that plan in 1999. Number two, that if the city doesn't want to follow the general plan and it wants to expand its growth horizons greater than what is outlined in the general plan, then it should come to the voters. And we voters get to participate in that relationship for 30 years. Now that relationship of 30 years, some people say, well, that's freezing the plan. It's not freezing the general plan. If people would read Measure Z, the actual initiative, there's not a word in there that locks down the plan, freezes the plan. It just says the plan is fine, but if you need to expand beyond what the plan says, then come to the voters. In 1999, that was very close to, excuse me, 2000. I'm going to choke. Pardon me. There were 8 jurisdictions in California. Can we move to the next speaker and let me get my voice?
Sure. Why don't we do that?
Thank you.
Maybe you can have a chance to recover. Steve, if you would, talk with us about Measure Y. I think there's kind of a chronological sequence that happened in terms of Grant's group coming forward with Measure Z,
Sure.
and then the public and the city council reacting to Measure Z in a various number of ways. So, are you up for it, Grant? Or
I can go.
Okay.
The point I was making is there were 8 jurisdictions in 2000, which was right next to the 1999 approval of the general plan, that had some sort of initiative having to do with the relationship of the voters to a general plan amendment, which is what we're talking about. And of those 8 jurisdictions, there was 1 county, Napa, and then there were 7 cities. 50% of those jurisdictions have voter participation from 30 years or more. There's 2 in perpetuity and 2 in 30 years, and then the other 2 were 20 years. So there were all 8 jurisdictions really wanted to count in the voters for a long period of time. So that was my point about the 30-year thing. Number 2, the issue of growth, managed growth. There's a lot of growth already in the general plan, and I brought a slide along today which is going to be brought up in a moment, and it's going to show what is already in the general plan. And that, if you look at the screen and you can read the numbers, this is from today, 2008, what the plan says will happen in 2020. There will be 12% increase in population to 23,395. That's what the plan says. And it also says the acreage is going to triple in terms of size. And the next slide shows that the managed growth initiative, in backing the general plan, it's a good idea because the city had a report rendered to it in 2006, and it said the best net financial outcome for the city, if it followed the general plan, was $1.4 million. I'm just rounding. And the least net financial income was to follow the proposals of these special development areas at that time in 2006. That would have been $9,000 a year. You can see the difference. And also in that same report it said just following the infill strategy, which is in the general plan, there would be 24% more jobs than proposed by the special development areas. So the Managed Growth Initiative is really supporting the plan, and the plan has growth, and it's financially a sound activity to follow. And I think I'm through with my 5 minutes.
All right. Well, thanks. And if we have time, we'll come back and discuss more. Steve, Measure Y.
Why Measure Y? So once Measure Z was qualified for the ballot in Grass Valley, a number of people got concerned about the results of Measure Z. So we decided to go ahead and look at some alternatives to it and offer the community a choice. So Mark Johnson, our mayor, who I met about 12 years ago, actually working on we were sort of concerned about the design of the proposal as Schwab about 12 years ago. That's where I first met Mark. And we formed the group Grass Valley Neighbors, which is supporting the effort for Measure Y. Dennis Casella, who's been in this community a long, long time, Hospice of the Foothills Board of Director, Lions Club Forever. He runs the Constitution Day Parade for a number of years up here in Nevada City. He stepped forward. And I met Dennis when I went to the Nevada County Community Leadership Institute. And then Peggy Levine, who has the Swan Levine House in Grass Valley, on the Historical Commission and Historical Board, she's helping restore the Julia Morgan House. The 3 of them stepped forward to go ahead and sponsor an alternative to Grass Valley's Measure Z, which would be Measure Y. And we agree with Grant relative to going ahead and providing and empowering the voters to go ahead and make some of the critical decisions for Grass Valley. So Measure Y does just 3 very basic fundamental things. First, it goes ahead and it establishes a hard urban growth boundary around the town, which is shown in the general plan is a build-out area, but it's not locked in any way, shape, or form. So there's an urban growth boundary which would be formed by the voters, which said we're not going to extend roads and services and public services past that point. This is where urban is going to stop, and this is where rural is going to begin. And a tighter, compact community means a more financially viable community because roads have to be maintained, police and fire and services. The second thing it does is also based on the general plan. And so we took the numbers that are in the general plan about the number of new residential units that are projected to be built, or I won't say authorized, but are planned to be built through the course of the year 2020 and eventually even past that build out of the general plan. And we said, let the voters go ahead and put a cap on the number of new residential units that will be built. And it's actually 4,028 are allowable, and that's new residential construction, not residential units that would be annexed into the town like in Glenbrook where that already exist, but new construction of brand new units. So we said put a cap on that too. It's also in the general plan. And if the people wish to go ahead and vote to go ahead and expand that number at some point in time, they can go ahead and vote on it. The third thing was to go ahead and make sure that development would pay its way. So in it requires that projects of 100 units or greater are required to go ahead and through a series of studies prove that their project is economically viable, providing the jobs to housing balance, enough sales tax and property tax income from their proposed project, so that the services that we would have to go ahead and provide, the way of roads and police and fire, those type of things, would be covered by the money that it would generate. So those are the three basic fundamentals of it. You know, I've been a land use planner for about 20 years, and I am fortunate enough to be able to travel the Sierra working on sustainable green development projects, and been helping with a sustainability town plan for South Lake Tahoe, among other places. And the number one thing, if we want to go ahead and retain small town quality of life and have a viable economy at the same time, we have to have flexibility to do some things, which is this walkable, high-density, mixed-growth development that you know, I work around the Sierra trying to go ahead and promote. So while Measure Y would put a big red line around the town that only the voters could change to expand it, and it would go ahead and cap the number of new residential units to this little over 4,000 that are in the general plan, requires developers to go ahead and pay and be fiscally responsible. It provides a flexibility to move around those 4,000 new units in density so that we can go ahead and build in a more compact way that is more walkable, less auto-dependent, more mixed uses where people can live, work, play, and socialize without getting out of their car and getting out of their cars and not getting into them. I live 2 blocks from the old movie theater. I live in a walkable community, you know, and that's a type of environment I like because I can leave my truck in the driveway for days at a time. Lowers my carbon footprint, I use less gas, I keep money, I get to go to more movies and spend more money at the sushi bar down in Grass Valley to do it. So, you know, I started Grass Valley Neighbors and Wolf Creek Community Alliance, you know, and I got to spend time with Patti, and we had a lot of good fun and got a lot of productive things done on the city council. And the Don't Roosevelt Grass Valley bumper stickers, that's me. So we think that Measure Y is the smarter alternative that allows flexibility, and will still go ahead and provide some firm sort of voter participation that'll control the size of the town and the number of units that are built while allowing the flexibility for smart growth.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Now, Patti, you have a position somewhat oppositional to these two gentlemen.
Yes, I represent a group called Grass Valley United. We were formed by some civic leaders and concerned citizens who are very wary of the passing of either of those initiatives. We find them both to create obstacles for the city to be able to have any kind of economic development or stability. We find that if either initiative passes, we believe that there will be a grand exodus, a continuing exodus of jobs and homes not being utilized, families leaving. One high point we saw in today's paper was the new high-tech company that is considering coming in here. I do believe, and those in my group believe that if either of these measures pass, that would be something that would send those people down the road. I did want to acknowledge that some of the items that these gentlemen are showing in their initiatives, the council has established those with a resolution called 660, where they did do a feasibility study with regard to the special development areas so that they would be economically viable to the city, and the council did make that resolution and did make some changes. The general plan is a living document. It's not a specific plan. It's there to have the opportunity to give the council, through public hearings and workshops, the opportunity to change things with the change of what the city needs and what will keep it viable. I think our biggest fear is either becoming a large commercial area or a bedroom community. And if we have a few minutes, I'd like to name off the individuals who are a member of Grass Valley United, because I think it's important for the public to know that. I'm going to read these names because in the past I've had some interviews with KNCO and the newspaper, and I've forgotten some names, and the individuals that I've forgotten are not happy about that. And then I would also like to list a group of businesses, business groups that have offered resolutions in opposition of both of the initiatives. So on Grass Valley United are Howard Levine, Jeff Pardini, Jim Meshwart, myself, my husband John Spencer, who's supervisor of District 3, Mary Ann Mueller, Dale Creighton, Barbara Bashel, Eleanor Kennitzer, Gerard Tassoni, David Watkinson, Gil Matthews, and Keone Allen. And currently we have, especially as of last night, resolutions of opposition from the Nevada Union Joint High School District, the Grass Valley Nevada County Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Resource Council, the Nevada County Business Association, the City of Grass Valley. The City Council passed 2 resolutions in opposition of both of these initiatives, the Farm Bureau, the Sierra College Board of Trustees, and the California Association of Business Property and Resource Owners. So I think we have a large and broad group of people who are concerned about these initiatives, and our opportunity is to offer no. You don't have to vote for either one, you can vote no.
Okay. All right, well that's gotten us off to a good start, and I'd like to kind of insert an observer's point of view, because it seems to me that a lot of what's happening in politics these days is a distrust of decision makers, and I think my view is that this is surfacing at a time, and I'd like you to comment, Grant. This is surfacing at a time when Grass Valley and the county is looking at some big projects, the special development SDAs that are, Loma Rica is one, the Idaho-Maryland mine opening, and I'm wondering how much this speaks to a matter of trust, whether the public, whether the voters and the citizens trust the city council. And this isn't an indictment of the city council as it now stands, but just trust the decision makers that are operating in our lives. Grant?
Well, I could point out one example. In 2006, there was a special development area workshop, and about 140 citizens attended that workshop. We sat around big coffee tables, 10 or 12 people. We had to even appoint a little secretary to take notes, and the facilitator went around and collected the notes. At the end of the session, the #1 concern of those 140 citizens participating was to follow the general plan. That was #1, and #2 was try to keep the small town atmosphere. And that was presented to the city sometime after that. And we got to remember that doing some calendars on April 11, 2006, I mentioned that financial report was approved by the city council 5-0. There was no exceptions to that financial report that said if you follow the general plan, you're going to get a good financial outcome. Then we had that special development area study workshop. That report was given on the 7th of August, and it was August 22nd, 2006 that our former mayor was referencing. They passed a resolution. It was 6-60, and it said, oh, don't pay attention to the SDA study. Just we'll let the plan have up to 1,263 more homes. Well, it seemed to us to be kind of a disassociation between A, the financial study, B, the workshop and the results that were provided on August 7, and then all of a sudden the city council comes up and says, oh, we think maybe we should add another up to, in fairness, up to 1,263 homes. Okay. It was just kind of a disconnect.
Patti or Steve?
Lew, you notice that there's a downturn in the economy, and a lot of things have changed since that fiscal report was done. Might have been the same guys working in Washington or Wall Street that's been doing some of those reports that got us in the mess. So maybe it's time to look at some new numbers. But good example of the SDAs or the 4 development areas, Kinney Ranch is no longer on the table. They've taken off 30, 40, 50 acres of commercial development and hundreds of houses to do 77 houses in the county, right? So one of the SDAs gone. We're looking at Bear River Mills, and hopefully I really would like that new electronics plant in Silicon Valley that comes up here to go out there, so we could build a primary job base of light industrial at Bear River Mills would be a great thing, so we could create more good paying jobs. The North Star SDA, the developer is in all kinds of financial and legal troubles. He's being sued. His projects have collapsed everywhere across the U.S. that he's been working on. The odds of that moving forward is slim to none. So what do we do about actually providing an opportunity in our community? The issue that you asked about trust in public government, one of the things that struck us the most when Measure Z came forward was For the same exact number of signatures that it took to qualify Measure Z for the ballot, you can run a referendum on anything the city does that you don't like. So after we go through the studies and the process and the public process and we look at, a project, and if that project was ever approved, be it one of the SDAs or the mine or anything else, simply by collecting the exact same number of signatures that were collected to go ahead and put Measure Z on the ballot, the community could go ahead and bring forward a referendum to go ahead and overturn that approval. This is California. That stopgap is always there. I had the same questions back earlier on, and what I did was go ahead and I ran for public office. And I sat there with people that I worked with for 4 years that didn't necessarily agree with me on everything, but we went ahead and put the communities at the center of what we did to try to figure out solutions and compromise and work through that. First and only Green Party ever elected to the city of Grass Valley, and I say engage the process we have.
Okay, let's give Patti a chance.
Well, I have to be quite honest and say that I don't think the quotes of Grant are accurate. And I'm just going to stand on that. I don't think I need to run through the numbers. I think the council went through several deliberations. They issued that report out for comment. It came back to the council in January. There were still questions and more comments wanted to be made. We brought the consultant back. And of course, I am talking about it. I said I wouldn't. But I think it's important to defend a council that really went the extra mile because they saw these SDAs out there. They wanted to be prepared for them. When the general plan was updated in 1998 and then approved in 1999, a lot of things changed just in that short period of time. We did not have a feasibility and marketing study with that general plan. The council took the time, the special development areas paid for that study, and they took time and they went through it with public hearings and workshops to get down to the nitty-gritty, and they did choose the appropriate number for Grass Valley so it doesn't become a bedroom community and it doesn't become overstocked with commercial. So I take opposition to that. I would also like to say that with regard to trust, we may not have the best opinion of our elected officials at the state and federal level, but you see us in the grocery store. You have an opportunity to go to where we work. You have an opportunity to talk to us, email. You have the right to come to a hearing, and you have the right of public comment. So I think elsewhere you could have that mistrust, but you have people that are representing you and they live next door to you. And so I think you need to be aware of that if you're not, and that you have this opportunity, and it's a great opportunity to have input into how your city is going to grow. I don't think these initiatives really should be about the right to vote. We have the right to vote. We have the right to go to public hearings. We have the right to participate in workshops. So it's all a matter of the economics that will not happen if these two initiatives pass. That's our point of view.
Well, one thing that can be said about this community, it's vibrant.
Today.
Yes, well, it has been vibrant for years in the sense of public participation. The idea that people have differences of opinion and are actively involved in voicing them. And of course, when that happens, you're going to always have a segment that's unhappy. It's just the way human nature works. I do have a question about development, because I sit on the Briar Patch board, and that was a change in the general plan, I believe.
Yes, it was. One of the 5 that the city conducted.
It was a mixed use in a zoning that wasn't a plan for mixed use.
Correct.
And I'm wondering what, and this addresses to you, Patti, but certainly everyone can comment, what barriers would have possibly been met in putting together that project, because my impression is that it would have been slowed down considerably, and
I believe it wouldn't even have happened.
So
that's true, Lew. Briar Patch, as well as the co-housing project that's out on Freeman Lane, both of those would have tremendous hurdles if the Managed Growth Initiative passed. They would have to garner the support of the public through an election, whether it be a special election that they paid for or one that ran with the city's regular election process. And they would have to garner enough votes to get the change in the land use only. So this is where the Managed Growth Initiative, I believe, does freeze the general plan, because it freezes the land use element of the general plan. It does not give any approval to any project. It just gives the change in that land use, and then the proponent has to go through the process of getting their project approved. One particular case, if I
want to be sure
okay.
to give Grant a chance to
Certainly.
respond to that kind of a circumstance. You know, you have a company coming here, or you have Briar Patch asking for a land use change, general plan change. How do you think that would affect what you're proposing with Measure Z?
What do you mean, how it would affect Measure Z? Measure Z would affect them.
That's
yes.
what I mean. That's
okay,
what, yeah.
that's the co-housing. I think for a general plan amendment, that's correct. It would have to have gone to the electorate. We're not sure of Briar Patch. You know, we've looked at that. Your city's looked at that, and I think it's arguable whether it was a general plan amendment or not, because it used the terminology retail center, and there is in the business park a clause that allows retail center. But short of that, it was a good project, and if it was requiring a general plan amendment, I feel sure the electorate, I would have voted for it. I supported that particular project. We raised, as members of citizens concerned about traffic, we raised a couple questions about parking and traffic.
Right.
And I think the parking is still being questioned by the board of directors of Briar Patch.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There are
Lou, the
plans to
problem-
expand the parking.
Yeah.
Lou, the problem isn't would people vote to change and do a general plan amendment for Briar Patch as senior co-housing. It's the year to a time delay that it would take.
Right.
I work with Chuck Durrett, Katie, and the co-housing company to do co-housing projects. I worked on the project at Wolf Creek, and I can tell you without a doubt that if Measure Z was in place, and that project would have not moved forward, because it would have taken another year and a half, possibly 2 years, to go ahead and go through the election process depending upon the cycle. The time and money that it would take to do it, it's not the risk of would people have voted for it or not, it's the time and money for that another year and a half delay. So a project that takes 2 years to go ahead and go through the system could take 3 or 4, they just wouldn't happen.
Well, I want to thank you all. Obviously, there's more to be said. And as we put our credits on the screen, there are websites to visit for each of these positions and groups. I want to thank you, Grant and Steve and Patti, very much.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank
for
you.
the
Thank you,
opportunity.
NCTV.
And continue to watch NCTV, your local public access TV station. Thanks to Gail Woodman, Marilyn Blum, Mike Leach, and our all-purpose manager, Bill Carquest, engineer. Thanks a lot.